Keep it down, everybody. God, seriously. Sorry, I have a headache. It's been so long. It won't go away. I've tried everything. Weed, drinking water, caffeine, weed, holding my breath while upside down, weed, starting a show about the news, like and subscribe. It's really helpful for the headache if you do that. I can't take Tylenol, obviously, because the autism will come get me like the Babadook. Also, I can't get circumcised. Autism would love us to get circumcised. That's the devil's snip. Oh yeah, here's some news. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You know the guy. You know what he's here to do.
And he's going to help make America healthy again.
There it is. MAHA, or MAHA if you have jaundice. That is the movement RFK Jr pioneered during his 2024 presidential campaign, which he parlayed into the White House cabinet position for the Secretary of Health and Human Services. This is despite RFK being, in the most objective journalism terms, a weird freak with a dead worm in his brain. But to be fair and balanced, the idea of a MAHA movement, in theory, is long overdue. You don't need a fancy big city PhD to understand that the United States is extremely unhealthy, and that our food and drug industries are largely bought and paid for by corporations that intentionally put bad things in our food to turn a profit. There is a lot of reform needed, which is probably why RFK was able to prevail. We all know something is wrong here. The obvious question is whether RFK Jr can solve those problems. Spoilers, he cannot.
I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me. I see you.
MAHA is trying to kill you. Wow. Now that is a premise. Surely that's hyperbole, right? Let's find out. Now, to sum up the entire MAHA movement, it's a loose coalition of wellness gurus, concerned parents, politicians, athletes, and health nuts that make a living off of influencing other people on how to live. This has created a lot of contradictions and confusing theories, often fringe and conspiracy stuff, because ultimately, for RFK, MAHA is actually just making America what his specific view of healthy is. A rejection of facts unless it serves a predetermined and seemingly contradictory agenda, usually blanketed in praise of anything natural. So for example, the sun. Remember the sun? It's been a while, I'm sure. I don't know if you know this, but the sun causes cancer, at least in large doses. Heck, if you get really close to it, the sun causes a whole lot of problems. According to worldwide cancer research, over 80% of skin cancers are caused by overexposure to UV radiation. Over 5 million cases of skin cancer are diagnosed every year. UV radiation is considered a carcinogen. You know what else is a carcinogen? Asbestos. And pesticides. Other stuff too. I'm not knocking the sun. We kind of need it. But it's important to be aware of the harm prolonged exposure can cause. Things can be both good and bad, you see. And in the past, politicians have responded logically. Our last presidential administration, with the tired, confused man, actually emphasized sunscreen use and reduced sun exposure as key elements in their anti-cancer public health campaigns. Obama levied a 10% tax on indoor tanning salons via the Affordable Care Act, and the Federal Trade Commission banned tanning services from promoting health benefits in their advertising. Even George W. Bush signed the Tanning Accountability and Notification Act in 2007, perhaps because his father suffered health problems from long-term exposure to the sun. This is just basic science. Sun, while good, can be bad. It's not controversial unless you're stupid. Again, long-term exposure. Because to be F and B about the S, some Americans don't get enough sun. Ideally, we should be getting around 10 to 30 minutes a day instead of what we're currently doing, which is playing the new Battlefield for 12 consecutive hours. Don't do that. But what's concerning is that RFK has shot completely the other way when it comes to UV radiation and skin cancer. Despite calling for an end to chronic illness and disease in America, his latest health agenda doesn't mention skin cancer once. despite, as I said, it being the most common and most preventable forms of cancer. The only mention of sunlight includes the line, "Morning sunlight synchronizes the body's internal clock, boosting mood and metabolism." While that sounds more like something out of a wellness blog, again, yes, sunlight is good. But why is he omitting the effects of long-term exposure? Despite RFK's entire persona being centered on concern for America's health, why is he ignoring the science on this one thing? Might have something to do with this video. Right. He's one of them crispy guys. That's RFK Jr. leaving a tanning salon, getting his skin nice and toasted up. You see, RFK, and dare I say Donald Trump, like the look of tanned skin. And that's honestly fine. A person can have an unhealthy habit or two. Me, Russian roulette. But instead of simply acknowledging that, RFK has to retcon the data to support his bad habit. It feels like an ego thing, right? He can't contend with the idea that he might be wrong about something, so he just changes reality and makes everyone else follow along. Probably can apply to a lot of people in this administration, current and former. RFK likes to tan despite that being bad for him. And so at some point, he found people who justified his hobby as being healthy. And those people all worked each other up into a frenzy until RFK was out there tweeting that under President Biden, the US Food and Drug Administration was aggressively suppressing sunshine as a beneficial health intervention. Suppressing sunshine, probably because he was getting paid by Big Cloud. And now, all these weirdos, these junk science influencers, are writing policy for an entire country. This one! This one. For example, Casey Means is RFK Jr.'s top health advisor who has been nominated as Surgeon General of the United States. In fact, by the time you watch this, she'll probably be going through the confirmation process. In her book, Good Energy, Means writes, "Shockingly, we rarely ever hear about how getting direct sunlight into our eyes at the right times is profoundly important for metabolic and overall health." Again, that's RFK Jr.'s top health advisor and potential Surgeon General seemingly talking about the importance of staring directly into the sun. Now, to be clear, going outside and having your eyes open while the sun is out is good for you for various reasons. Getting direct sunlight into your eyes doesn't actually mean stare directly into the sun. However, these messages are often filtered down the MAHA pipeline to a network of wellness influencers and thought leaders who completely mangle the point. Take, for example, this guy. They told him not to do this, yet his mitochondria are absorbing infrared light, fueling his body like a solar battery, is a thing he wrote in the description. Folks, he's staring directly into the sun to power his body like your grade school calculator, which our current Secretary of Health and Human Services seemingly supports doing, although I guess we could have seen this one coming. See, he was just recharging. It all makes sense now. Although Trump also thinks that the body has a finite amount of energy and that's why he doesn't exercise, because if you use it all up, you're dead. So he's like an unrechargeable battery. Look, I don't know. I can't stress enough that this all feels like it stems from RFK Jr. simply not wanting to recognize that he has a bad tanning habit. So once again, a predetermined and seemingly contradictory agenda, usually blanketed in praise of anything natural. The sun is natural. How can it be bad? And like, yes, we all come from nature, except for Warmbo. So natural remedies and meals aren't inherently bad things. But the MAHA movement seems to reject the idea that some natural things can be bad too. You know what else is natural? Hippos. Does that mean we're not getting enough natural hippo exposure in our daily lives? Maybe, actually. Bad example. But you see what I mean. Also, science is natural too. Many things are natural, and we've spent a very long time perfecting medicine and nutrition with science. MAHA wants to draw this really firm line where everything natural is good and everything artificial is bad, except when it isn't, because the president loves fast food. And it's doing this by harnessing the knowledge that, yes, America isn't healthy. Most Americans know that, but don't necessarily know why that is. RFK Jr. gets to capitalize on that lack of knowledge and use fear to target the one thing he knows people are concerned about: children. Take, for instance, this ad spot produced by a political action group named MAHA Alliance.
Manufacturers selling baby food with high levels of toxic heavy metals.
Foods and cereals marketed to children contain a weed-killing chemical that some health authorities link to cancer.
Exposed to chemicals and additives that have been banned in other countries.
Half the tap water contains forever chemicals.
Enough is enough. President Trump and I are going to stop the mass poisoning of American children. We're going to make America healthy again.
MAHA Alliance is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, how is that not an infomercial you'd see at 3 a.m. on basic cable? How is that not an ad that would star Alex Jones? Not to derail, but that ad just showed a series of fake AI videos of kids getting poisoned with an unsourced news-sounding voiceover of people saying there's toxic metals in baby foods, and then cuts to RFK saying enough is enough, like they actually showed something real. Again, that's literally how infomercials work when they show the black and white before videos of actors lopping off their fingers before finally buying a slap chop. Although, plot twist, to be effed/B, heavy metals may be a problem in baby food. More on the reason in a moment. But here's where we get into the attacks on our government. And again, there's a lot to criticize the government for in terms of healthcare and policy. But that's not gonna be the stuff he goes after. Once MAHA instills fear, the next step is convincing you that our current health leadership in government is in cahoots with mysterious corporations poisoning our children and actively fighting against the public good. RFK Jr. has done this effectively by creating boogeymen out of the top health agencies in our country. While he's been disparaging government agencies for a long time now, the COVID pandemic really gave him a window to take advantage of the fear and confusion that many Americans were feeling about a new and unknown contagious virus. By 2023, RFK had a solid stake of political capital, including a small but extremely excitable base of voters. However, COVID was fading into the background by the 2024 presidential race. In order to prove that our health agencies like the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and the Food and Drug Administration were corrupt, RFK Jr. and his MAHA allies needed to convince people that the things they allow are actually dangerous. For example, we are in the midst of a national health scare over seed oils. Again, here's Casey Means.
They're brand new and they're highly concentrated and rich for omega-6 fats, which are pro-inflammatory. They get incorporated rapidly into our cell membranes and have an impact on how our cells function. They outcompete other healthier forms of fat for places in our cell membrane. So they're actually changing really the structural integrity of our body.
Just to stress, RFK Jr.'s top advisor, currently nominated for the Surgeon General position, going through the confirmation hearings right now. There's a good chance that after we film this, there will have been a bunch of new clips of her saying absolutely batshit things. And it should probably be noted that Casey Means is not a practicing medical doctor. She graduated the MD program from Stanford in 2014, but she dropped out of her surgical residency several years later. She wrote in her book that she became disillusioned with the for-profit medical system and chose to walk away from a career in medicine. However, former colleagues told Vanity Fair that Means quit because she couldn't handle the stress of the job. Since then, she has started a for-profit company that sells glucose monitoring services for $200 to $400 a month, which she often promotes on various podcasts, and is now trying to squeeze the practice into federal health policy. But anyway, Means, along with her boss, RFK Jr., love this talking point that seed oils cause inflammation in the body.
Seed oils, the reason they're in the foods is because they're heavily subsidized. They're very, very cheap, but they are associated with all kinds of very, very serious illnesses, including body-wide inflammation.
Right.
Which affects all of our health. It's one of the worst things you can eat, and it's almost impossible to avoid. If you eat any processed food, you're going to be eating seed oil.
Now, I'm going to do my best to avoid food and nutrition science jargon, lest both our brains recoil like a fearful spider. But more than a dozen randomized control trials have found that refined seed oils have no effect on inflammation in the body. There are individual studies suggesting that too much seed oil can worsen chronic migraines and cause cancerous tumors in mice. But decades of research actually shows that the unsaturated fats contained in seed oils have been linked with reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. A lot of foods, however, are usually drenched in seed oils. Americans eat a lot of this stuff. Chips, yogurt, bread, cereals, hot dogs, chicken nuggets, dino nuggets, mega dino nuggets, fun nuggets, which just look like dino nuggets. And to his credit, RFK Jr has called out the scourge of junk food that Americans consume on a daily basis. But to actually make an impact on the unhealthy food epidemic, RFK Jr and the federal government would need to pull some pretty big levers of regulation to crack down on the food industry at large, while providing resources for state and local governments to better provide fresh, whole foods to businesses and the public. It would have to involve, cue the lightning crash, regulations! Lightning crash. Cool. So are we going to do that? Or perhaps, are we going to do the opposite of that?
The U.S. Department of Agriculture is cutting two programs worth roughly $1 billion. One of them provided roughly $660 million for schools to buy food from local farms.
Yeah, it's the second one. See, here's what makes RFK Jr absolutely perfect for the GOP. He recognizes that there's a problem in America when it comes to our health. However, the snag is that the solutions require a lot of stuff that Republicans don't like doing. Funding things like healthy food for kids, making healthcare affordable, regulating industries that put dangerous chemicals in our water. That's commie Obama stuff, right? For example, remember that problem with metals in our baby food? Currently, RFK has directed the Food and Drug Administration to increase their testing on baby formula and food. He's also pushed formula brands that claim to be more natural. Except here's the thing. Heavy metals are also found in homemade baby food, because heavy metals are found in our food. Organic food too, stuff like spinach and sweet potatoes, are at high risk of contaminants, because a lot of those contaminants, including arsenic and lead, are naturally occurring. Because natural things can be bad, you see. But others are due to increased industrial pollution. That's all to say that this isn't an organic versus processed conversation, but a conversation about regulating our food, something that Republicans don't want to spend money to do lest they offend their friends and donors. And so this is why RFK Jr is perfect. Again, he recognizes that America eats like shit, but his solutions conveniently avoid regulations. The only snag, I guess, is that his solutions are also very bad and don't actually work.
President Trump wants us to have radical transparency and to incentivize companies like this one to switch to traditional ingredients like beef tallow.
Oh, by the way, here you go.
Ah, yes, the beef tallow. RFK Jr is basically performing a bait and switch here. Instead of actually fighting for policies that would provide Americans with healthier foods, he's encouraging fast food restaurants to fry their foods in a placebo. Because here's the thing, it's not the type of oil. Fried foods in general are simply not good for you, and it doesn't really matter which oil you fry it in. You shouldn't eat them unless you're really high or drunk. So the beef tallow stuff is like someone advising you to smoke meth out of a clay pipe because it's more natural. Except, and this is key, he's still wrong. RFK is wrong about this. Beef tallow is high in saturated fats, and decades of research shows that it's actually a lot worse for you than consuming a typical seed oil. In fact, fast food restaurants switched over to seed oils from beef tallow in the 80s and 90s once it became clear that diets high in saturated fats led to an increased risk of heart disease. He is wrong on multiple levels. He's proposing a band-aid to a problem, and even the band-aid is worse for you. But of course, he likes beef tallow because it sounds natural. You know, like arsenic and lead and hippos are natural. It's all to say that RFK's general health policy is no different from the wellness industry, which is fitting since the wellness industry exists because we can't afford health care. We've actually covered on our show before how the supplement and multivitamin business is a largely unregulated industry that rivals the pharmaceutical industry, and that supplement hucksters can essentially make wild health claims without the silly burden of proving their claims to the FDA. And now that industry is brainworming its way into our government. Our potential future Surgeon General, Casey Means, has made hundreds of thousands of dollars through affiliate programs with natural remedy products and supplements.
I think that covering your bases with supplementing micronutrients, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals with a good high-quality multivitamin and some other supplements can be really helpful, and that's why I do it every day. I take Wenatal because I do want to have a baby in the next couple years, and I think it's one of the highest quality multivitamins on the market, and it specifically focuses on high-quality antioxidants, which research shows is actually really impactful for successful pregnancies and getting pregnant. So I love Wenatal, and I really can't recommend it enough.
Our maybe future Surgeon General, folks. I need to keep saying that because I myself don't fully believe it. In short, MAHA makes a big fuss about big pharma while being a Trojan horse for big wellness. Both are bad, mind you, but it should be noted that if we encompass the entire wellness industry overall, it's actually 4 times larger than the global pharmaceutical industry. And so RFK Jr.'s term as Secretary of Health and Human Services has pretty much served as one massive infomercial.
I have some raw milk. Do you want to do a shot of raw milk?
Sure.
Let's toast this with me. All right. So to the raw milk, it's raw milk and honey. We've added some lineage glyphosate-free honey because one of the things I know you're thinking about a lot is this huge amount of glyphosate. So we've got glyphosate-free honey and raw milk, and let's go. So here's raw milk and honey for us.
Here you go, boys. Enjoy.
Secretary Kennedy, cheers.
Good.
Oh, God. I did not need to see those old lips slurp down raw milk. That was tough. That shook me. Let's watch it again. Why'd I watch it again? Why'd I do that? This is like those TikTok zit popping videos. You just keep watching. What is wrong with me? Am I sick? Oh, what were we talking about? What were we doing? Making a video? Right. My point to all of this is that RFK Jr. is the perfect solution to a country that refuses to actually reform healthcare. The same way Donald Trump is the perfect solution to a country that refuses to reform anything. He identifies that there are problems, uses the frustrations of the country to propel himself into power, and then proposes solutions that do nothing to help and often scapegoats vulnerable people. And that is, of course, how we get to vaccines and autism. But before that, we need to watch some ads. Enjoy these ads. Oh God, sorry, I had to see it again. Okay, for real, enjoy these ads, actual ads.
Is anyone else feeling like this year is flying by way too fast? I mean, it's almost March already. I just stopped writing February on all my checks. That where did the time go anxiety is real, folks, and it can leave you feeling scattered and behind. But I am here to tell you that you can feel free to slow down, even if Easter is bearing down on us like Thanksgiving in November, a month that is, thankfully, far into the future. And one way I slow down is with Calm. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, and it's here to help you feel better. They've got guided meditations and calming music to help ease the leap day tensions and get you sleeping well to recover from those burgeoning spring allergies. Am I right? Up top. Plus, I love their grounding exercises that help me when I'm feeling overwhelmed with the post-President's Day blues. So, calm your mind, change your life. Calm has an exclusive offer just for our audience. Get 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/more news. This is an amazing value. Go to calm.com/more news for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. And get your spring off to a great start. Wait, what is that? What is that? November 2025? Wait. How long was I meditating for? I thought I was just a little relaxed and I end up Rip Van Winkling through an entire... Wait, stop. Who's the president? Oh, no. No. Okay, good Lord. It's time to re-up my subscription. Okay, that's it. Calm's getting me through all of the horrors. That is calm.com/more news. And tell Calm you heard about them from me. I gotta go catch up on my movies. I can't believe I missed Furiosa. Everyone's gonna spoil it for me.
The news. It won't be like this forever, I swear. One day it'll be not over, certainly, but less than this. It has to. But to help make sense of everything while the news is the torrential downpour it is, I recommend Ground News, a website and app we specifically wanted to sponsor us, which you can access via the QR code on the screen. They gather news from hundreds of sources and compare coverage. I've been working with Ground News for a long time, and that is for a reason. I think they're one of the most powerful solutions for getting to the truth of a story, given all the spin you will see online. For example, they're all over news stories that shouldn't even be news, like the story that President Trump will likely name the new White House ballroom after himself, sources told ABC News. Oh, you think? No need to speak to anonymous sources, ABC News. We know what he's going to name the ballroom. On Ground News, I can see the various ways different outlets are presenting this completely unforeseen information. It helps contextualize news that is either surprising or the least surprising thing you've ever heard in your life. So head over to ground.news/SMN for 40% off unlimited access. You'll get a factuality analysis of each source and their blind spot feature to see which stories are being ignored by one side. That's ground.news/SMN for 40% off. The link is in the description. The ballroom is obviously going to be named after him. Who was he going to name it after instead? Eric? The other guy? No. Yeah, you slurp it. Slurp it down, you deep-fried freak. Hey again! Yes, I was watching it, and I'm not ashamed of that. I'm kind of ashamed. That's part of it. So we were talking about the entire MAHA movement and how, instead of finding actual solutions, it's fundamentally designed to push wellness hacks and blame various scapegoats to avoid government regulation. And this is what brings us perfectly into RFK Jr.'s rabid obsession with vaccines.
The doctor who gives this vaccine to a child is committing medical malpractice. We should not be giving black people the same vaccine schedule that's given to whites. I do believe that autism does come from vaccines.
That's the Washington Post showing some receipts. Because, yeah, RFK has said some wacky-ass stuff, it appears. Reporters found that he has made disparaging comments and claims about vaccines and vaccine safety in at least 114 public appearances in recent years. Many of those times, he's claimed that vaccines are the cause of autism. We'll get to that. But to be fair and Jimmy Fallanced, RFK Jr. isn't explicitly against all vaccines. He stated on multiple occasions that whole virus vaccines are safe. as opposed to mRNA vaccines, a relatively new method of developing vaccines that brought us the likes of the COVID-19 jab. So in case you are wondering, because I was wondering, the difference is that a whole or live virus vaccine implants a weakened form of the virus in our bodies to trigger an immune response, whereas mRNA is a genetic material formed in a lab that essentially teaches our cells how to create certain proteins that create an immune response inside our bodies. The development of mRNA vaccines is considered a major breakthrough in vaccinology. They are both effective, mind you, but mRNA is preferred for certain people. If you're pregnant, for example, or immunocompromised. It's also highly adaptable to different pathogens, meaning producers can design and scale the vaccine quickly. So while they are both good, the mRNA is clearly the more adaptable version, and again, preferred for people who are particularly vulnerable. So naturally, RFK Jr hates it.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced yesterday the cutting of nearly $500 million of grants and contracts for developing mRNA vaccines. Kennedy yesterday explained the decision, insisting the government will instead prioritize the development of whole virus vaccines.
But right now, we're developing a universal vaccine at NIH, which is a vaccine that addresses the entire phylum of viruses. And so it's a vaccine that mimics natural immunity. And it is effective against any kind of mutation. So it doesn't drive the virus to mutate. And it could be effective. We believe it's going to be effective against not only coronaviruses, but also flu.
It's hard to fully understand what's happening in his brain here. I guess we could ask those worms about it, but he's given no logical justification for this. For example, one of the reasons he's given is that mRNA vaccines don't work because people still got COVID even when they were vaccinated.
But as the pandemic showed us, mRNA vaccines don't perform well against viruses that infect the upper respiratory tract. Millions of people, maybe even you or someone you know, caught the Omicron variant despite being vaccinated.
So it's a real bummer I have to explain this to the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services, but getting an infection doesn't mean the vaccine doesn't work. Vaccines help prevent the virus from making you sick and help prevent you from dying if you do get sick. They aren't a magic shield from sickness. What he's saying there is nonsense. He's also using the COVID vaccine as the example of why mRNA technology failed, which is pretty wild when you think about it. Operation Warp Speed brought life-saving COVID vaccines up to scale for millions of Americans within 8 months. For perspective, the previous record holder was the mumps vaccine in the 1960s, and that took 4 years. The success of Operation Warp Speed has put RFK Jr. in a very tricky situation, because in a logical world, it should be the thing that Donald Trump brags about the most. It's the Trump vaccine. He just got his booster. I'm surprised he didn't call it Operation God Trump or something like that. So RFK Jr. has to walk this really confusing line here. Here he is praising Operation Warp Speed.
The reason that Operation Warp Speed was genius is it did something nobody had ever been done. I don't think any president but President Trump could do it. It got the vaccine to market that was perfectly matched to the virus at that time when it was badly needed, because there was low natural immunity and there were people getting very badly injured by COVID.
Oh, okay. But then what about this?
But as the pandemic showed us, mRNA vaccines don't perform well against viruses that infect the upper respiratory tract.
Which is it, bub? What is happening in your worm brain? If I had to guess, it'd be the worm brain stuff. But if I had to guess more, I think there are 2 very stupid things happening here. Number 1, worm brain. Okay, so 3 things. 3 things are happening here. Number 1, worm brain. Number 2, I think he has a contrarian aversion to anything new and favors anything that seems natural. A whole virus vaccine sounds more natural to him. Like whole milk, I guess? Using the virus itself probably triggers that part of his brain attracted to wellness grifts. Yes, I think it's that stupid. I also think it's how he's trying to deflect critics who might call him an anti-vaxxer. But appearing to support live virus vaccines isn't innovative or groundbreaking. It's kind of the baseline responsibility of a national health director. And make no mistake, he is absolutely still an anti-vaxxer. Back in June, RFK Jr fired all 17 members of the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Board and replaced many of them with anti-vaxxers. Just last month, RFK Jr fired Susan Menares, the Trump-appointed director of the CDC, because she refused RFK Jr.'s request to give blanket approvals on vaccine recommendations from said anti-vaxxers. In a testimony to Congress, Menares said that RFK Jr told her in a meeting that the CDC is the most corrupt federal agency in the world, emphasized that CDC employees were horrible people. He said the CDC employees were killing children and they don't care. Speaking of killing children and not caring, back in 2019, a measles outbreak in Samoa killed 83 people, mostly children, which happened to be the same year RFK had visited the country to promote a bunch of anti-vaccine propaganda. 4 months before that outbreak. He has since been asked about this and did not care.
Do you accept even a scintilla, just even a sliver of responsibility for the drop in vaccinations and the subsequent deaths of more than 70 people? Anything you do differently?
No, absolutely not.
Just wanted to share that. He's like the Grim Reaper, folks. He shows up and kids die. So worse than the Grim Reaper because he mostly kills kids? Krampus? What I'm getting at is that all of these steps taken by RFK Jr. will likely cause vaccination rates to drop in the country, which means that children who are immunocompromised or even healthy unvaccinated children will be more vulnerable to deadly diseases like measles, mumps, or the coronavirus. It's bad. He's bad. Krampus, bad. But with mRNA, he's essentially trying to have his cake and eat it too. Vaccines are safe and effective, but he's made an entire career off of questioning them, and so he has to pander to that base somehow. So he's going after this one new type of vaccine, somewhat arbitrarily, to keep those anti-vaxxers happy. Oh, also to keep himself happy, because during his career, he has also profited off of lawsuits drawn against vaccine makers.
But one of the more interesting pieces of his financial disclosure was that he gets these referral fees, sending essentially plaintiffs, people, families, to other law firms. And he refers them so that they can sue on the grounds of, say, a vaccine lawsuit. So one of the things that we learned last week was there is an ongoing lawsuit against Merck, and that he was a central player in this lawsuit. He says that he still stands to earn some money from these referral fees, so long as the U.S. government isn't a party.
That's right. Our Secretary of Health and Human Services is actively making money off of an industry that he is in charge of regulating. The more doubt he can sow around the safety of vaccinations, the more money and notoriety he gains. That should be more shocking if it weren't for all the other crimes in this administration. And that playbook seems to be working terrifyingly well, as Florida tried to become the first state to drop all vaccine requirements for public school children. Florida's Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo announced that decision by mimicking MAHA talking points, describing the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine as poison. Thankfully, they didn't go through with this, but still, don't go to Florida. If you have to go, like if you're one of those weird Disney adults, never leave the hotel, don't touch any children, don't do that anywhere. So anyway, that's his grift. All RFK Jr. needs to do is poke holes of doubt into the safety of vaccines, and he gets to directly profit off of any lawsuits. It's an easy job if you're an asshole. Not many people have a degree in vaccinology or immunology. There are a lot of things about the human body that are hard to understand or conceptualize, like my godly singing voice. So we rely on scientists and researchers to better understand them for us. And RFK is riding on the Maga wave of doubt and disdain for experts. As I keep saying, things aren't great in America, even before they got less great. And instead of actually tackling the complicated reasons for that, Trump has successfully used a series of scapegoats that are easy to demonize. Part of selling that had to include labeling experts as elitists who secretly want to harm you. That distrust in experts means that they can say just about anything they want now. They have built in a denial system. Like a cult. And speaking of harmful beliefs that eventually lead to mass murder or death, let's talk about RFK's views on autism.
My mother, when she found out you were coming on, she's a big Democrat, she says, he's dangerous. He's an anti-vaxxer. He says that autism comes from vaccines and you must challenge him on that, Jesse. Is my mom crazy?
Well, I do believe that autism does come from vaccines.
Amazing work, Jesse. My crazy mom thinks you believe that vaccines cause autism. What say you? And then RFK confirms that she's right. Your mom should throw up on you. That clip was from 2023. Since taking office in the Trump administration, RFK Jr has only lightly pared those claims back, now saying that environmental toxins are one of the causes for the surge in autism diagnoses in the United States. Thing is, it doesn't really matter what he ends up blaming autism on, because his entire starting position is fundamentally terrifying and based on lies. For starters, you can't blame anything for autism because autism isn't bad. You shouldn't be looking for a culprit because there wasn't a crime. Also, you can't catch autism. It's not a virus or a bacteria like Beatlemania. It's a set of certain behaviors that, when taken all together, are diagnosed by a medical professional as autism spectrum disorder. We've been studying autism since 1943, when an Austrian-American physician and psychiatrist first described children with extreme autistic aloneness. Like many phenomena that were deemed as a societal ill at the time, we simply blamed women for this. God, that must have been so much easier for people. I mean, except for women, who actually are people. Psychiatrists actually coined the term refrigerator mothers, or overly cold and emotionally distant mothers, for causing autistic behavior in their children. For Black mothers, that stigma was even worse, as the medical community at the time only thought autism was possible in white children.
According to my doctors, my son could not be autistic. I was not white, and it was assumed that I was not educated, and therefore he was labeled emotionally disturbed. Here your child has a disability that you recognize. And they said, no, you can't be that. You can't even be a refrigerator mother. The irony of it all.
Again, so much easier back then if you were a white guy specifically. Not like today, where we are all oppressed by woke. Anyway, we thankfully broadened our understanding of autism starting in the 1970s, when scientists found that autism had distinct biological underpinnings. In 1980, the third revision of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, or DSM-3, established that autism was a pervasive developmental disorder, defining essential features of autism like a lack of interest in people, communication impairments, and unusual responses to the environment. And to be clear, disorder is their word, not ours. By 2000, psychiatrists and physicians started to categorize autism as a spectrum, grouping other known conditions like Asperger's and childhood disintegrative disorder into the autism spectrum. In 2013, the American Psychiatric Association released the DSM-5, officially consolidating multiple known behavioral disorders under the umbrella of autism spectrum disorder. As you may have guessed, as our definition and understanding of autism has broadened, the number of autism diagnoses has risen. 1 in 150 children in the United States were placed somewhere on the autism spectrum in 2000. That figure is now 1 in 31. While that may seem unbelievably dramatic, keep in mind that autism spectrum disorder encompasses everyone from people who have low support needs all the way to those who require a substantial amount of daily support. And so that is why the cases have gone up. That's mostly it. Our definition of autism broadened to include other things, and our understanding of the spectrum meant that we were able to recognize it more. That's it. Mystery solved. No need to scream about chemtrails or whatever the f***. Sorry, it's that simple. And might I add, who gives a shit? People are different, and so on and so forth. Star-bellied sneeches, etc. But because he's either stupid or a liar, RFK Jr. seems completely unable to grasp this idea. And so we have this man, the goddamn Secretary of Health and Human Services, saying this.
And then there's an individual injury. These are kids that this is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin.
That's so f***ed, man. He's just wildly incorrect. He's starting from the idea that autism is an affliction caused by something environmental, as if the child ingests or absorbs something before the age of 2 years old that makes them autistic. Like, imagine if your doctor said that ADHD was caused by petting dogs, and he's now going to base everything off of that. We saw this back in April when he said they were going to find the cause of autism by September. That is so frighteningly not how science works. You can't do scientific discovery by a set due date, for starters. You know, unless you already know what you're going to say. But also, he started from the idea that you can find a single cause in the first place. Decades of research shows that autism has links to hundreds of different types of genes and is likely the outcome from a complex mix of genetic factors and, yes, possibly some environmental ones. In other words, the causes behind autism are incredibly nuanced and hard to understand. You're not going to bang that out in a few months. There's no one smoking gun here, especially not vaccines. Besides the fact that there is concrete and overwhelming evidence that vaccines don't cause autism, there's simply no satisfying or one-dimensional answer here. It's not like in the movies where you can reveal some kind of dramatic plot behind all of this. Science is complicated and sometimes boring, and most people are going to be disappointed by that. It's easier to just say, well, an asteroid killed the dinosaurs, than to explain that there are multiple theories due to the various interpretations of fossil records, and it's possible that environmental factors, including a period of climate change before the asteroid, led to an extinction event possibly lasting thousands of years. Well, screw that! Asteroid went boom! Monster's dead! And this is what RFK Jr is utilizing. By linking vaccines or other environmental factors as the sole cause of autism, RFK Jr provides an easy way to digest an incredibly complex genetic and neurodevelopmental condition. Again, it's akin to Trump saying immigrants or Antifa are ruining the country. It gives people a simple scapegoat for their hard circumstances. RFK Jr and his team are now working on policy changes that would place autism spectrum disorder on the federal vaccine injury list, which would effectively incentivize people to claim that vaccines have caused their child's autism and pursue civil litigation against vaccine makers. And this incredibly simplistic and stupid understanding of science has led us to now, when his department presented their findings back in September, saying this.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Yes. Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
Listen, well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen is hard to say, all right? Give him a break. He's barely keeping it together as it is. Anyway, it was the Tylenol behind it all, like Palpatine. Autism is caused by a common painkiller, and if you take it while pregnant, then it is entirely your fault for giving your child autism. Wow, so we're back to blaming mothers like the good old days. I feel like most people can see that this is like rock bottom, right? After pumping up anti-vaxxers for years, RFK Jr and the administration have made this wildly random accusation around a drug that we no doubt have spent a long time studying the effects of. It is so childish, and it could only happen from people who have rejected science and the advice of experts. Following this press conference, the FDA is now labeling Tylenol, highlighting one of its main ingredients, acetaminophen, with health warnings associating Tylenol intake with autism diagnoses. They're basing their entire reasoning off of one study from researchers at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health and the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, which found evidence for a connection between acetaminophen, and autism, but cautions that they didn't find any causal relationship. But of course, you wouldn't know that if you just listened to Trump officials.
The biggest study was done by Harvard and Mount Sinai. They looked at 27 studies showing an association. There were 4 against it, and they said, based on the overwhelming body of evidence, there was a causal relationship. Those are the exact words of the dean of the Harvard School of Public Health. So there's been this growing body of evidence. We're just now bringing it to the forefront so that people know when they pop a Tylenol willy-nilly during their pregnancy, they should know most low-grade fevers don't need to be treated.
If you're curious, here's the exact conclusion that Dr. Willy-nilly here was referencing. Quote, a causal relationship is plausible because of the consistency of the results and appropriate control for bias in the large majority of the epidemiological studies, as well as acetaminophen's biological effects on the developing fetus in experimental studies. But this conclusion, just a few sentences later, goes on to say, quote, while this association warrants caution, untreated maternal fever and pain pose risks such as neural tube defects and preterm birth, necessitating a balanced approach. It also says that further research is needed to confirm any of this, and perhaps the President of the United States shouldn't hold a press conference and declare, don't take Tylenol.
Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen.
That last part wasn't in the study itself. Point is that the study didn't say what RFK and our dear president have been saying. It's not a condemnation, and in fact recognizes what other physicians have also pointed out, that leaving a fever untreated for a prolonged period of time can increase the risk of birth defects, miscarriage, and neurodevelopmental disorders. So I'm no science pervert, I just play one on TV. But I feel like if you're taking a medicine to help with pain or a fever, maybe look at the causes of that and not the medicine itself. So yeah, the administration is essentially whipping up hysteria about a common painkiller so RFK Jr and Trump can score kudos with their conspiratorial base. We have booted out or ignored the experts and have officially reverted back to the time of refrigerator moms. Gonna start taking bets on when phrenology comes back. Of course, there's more to all of this besides the stupidity. It's possible that there's actually something way darker behind RFK Jr and MAHA in general. I'll give you a hint, it rhymes with Tony Bennex. That's not how you say it, it's eugenics. We're gonna talk about eugenics. Be right back. It's man gift time. That time of year where you have to think about what gift to give the men in your life. What do those hairy freaks even like? Golf? Ties? Kurt Russell, probably. Wait a minute. Man gift? I'm a gift. Also, a man creature. And that gives me the perfect idea because my bathroom mood totally went topsy-turvy after I got a Tushy bidet. This thing was easy to install, got me squeaky clean, and wasn't awkward like I thought it might be. Every guy I know, there's gotta be like 4 of them at least, is gonna get one of these from me. They attach to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing. Plus, the Tushy Wave instantly modernizes your daily routine and bathroom with a super sleek seat, plus 2 separate front and rear nozzles for the most complete clean. And don't forget about that built-in air dryer or the fact that your giftees are going to use like 80% less toilet paper. That is some serious cash back in your pocket that you won't have to use to wipe after you forget to buy toilet paper, which I made up. That's not a thing. It's not a thing that's ever happened. I made that part up. Remember, a-hole is only a naughty word if you wipe. For a limited time, our audience gets 10% off your first bidet order when you use code SMN at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at HelloTushy.com with promo code SMN. Use it for yourself, give it to a man friend, make a man friend just for the sake of giving them a bidet. This might solve the loneliness epidemic, actually, if you believe.
Moving Movies! Pluto! There are very few TV shows about the dwarf planet Pluto, which is probably why they called it Pluto TV, to avoid any unpleasant disambiguation. It's not like they could call it The Big Bang Theory TV. That wouldn't rank very high on Google, my friends. Well, anyway, they've got a lot of great stuff in there, and it's free. No paying $15 a month for a new season of Stranger Things twice a decade. Movies like Clunkosaurus Rex, False Start at Arizona State, Silent but Deadly Night, Target Strike Mission Storm, 3 Cheers for Dan Quayle, The Segway Diaries, Lana Del Rey Mysterio, 3 Princes, a Spin Doctor sequel, Betty Spaghetti, hey, it's IP, right? And, of course, Mr. Deeds. Do all the movies and all the TVs on Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never. You know, I really should just go ahead now and pitch these guys my idea for 4 princes. 4 princes. Emphasis on the 4.
Welcome back. Did you enjoy those commercials? Seriously, we need to know. It's important to me that you feel happy. So we were talking about RFK Jr.'s half-assed link between autism and vaccines, which morphed into a half-assed link between autism and Tylenol. We've been crediting a lot of their science with pure stupidity or a contrarian aversion to anything not deemed natural. But it would be silly not to talk about the ideology at work here. MAHA isn't simply a group of grifter influencers groping in the dark. A lot of them absolutely have a more sinister agenda that goes far beyond vaccines or raw milk or autism. And you can probably see it most clearly in this clip of RFK displaying his understanding of the hardships of autism.
Autism destroys families. And more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children.
To be clear, around a quarter of those diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder have what is commonly called profound autism, or those that require around-the-clock care due to self-injury behavior and/or inability to communicate effectively. It absolutely can be heartbreaking, and it's easy to understand why some parents hope that there's some kind of preventable cause to that. But did he say never pay taxes? Is that something we're really concerned about? See, if you've watched up to this point in the episode, you probably get the notion that RFK Jr. is obsessed with autism for the entirely wrong reasons. Like, never go on a date. There's literally a reality TV show that proves him wrong. Someone please sign my guy up for a Netflix account. Autistic people might not be in the same dating pools as RFK Jr. or reportedly cheat on their wife at least 43 times with 43 different women, but many of them can still be intimate and find romantic connection. The fact of the matter is that while, yes, there are people on the spectrum that require a lot of support, people with autism can and do live full lives. Just not necessarily the kind of lives that RFK Jr. wants them to have. Ones where they pay taxes, I guess? To quote Zachary Warren, a pediatric psychiatrist and autism researcher at Vanderbilt University, autism isn't a single thing. It is a word we use in an attempt to capture a spectrum of behavioral strengths, differences, and vulnerabilities in order to help optimally support children. Strengths, differences, and yes, vulnerabilities. That is how our national dialogue on autism should be going. We should be focusing on resources, research, and funding to help parents with autistic children and adults, or incentivize schools to create more inclusive programming. Instead, we have RFK Jr. talking about it like an epidemic that needs to be solved because it compromises our valuable child resource, prevents them from being productive adults, you see. It's the tendrils that eventually reach eugenics. Like, historically speaking, this is bordering on eugenics talk. Psychologist and preeminent eugenicist Henry H. Goddard actually coined the term moron in the early 20th century for people he deemed to be of low intelligence, and worried about how those perceived morons would affect the quality of American stock. That is essentially how RFK Jr views autism, which in his words, destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. Again, I don't think it needs to be said that children with autism are not a lost cause. And in fact, many autistic people have made significant contributions to our society. Some of them can even grow up to be cool murderer accountants, according to the pictures. Autism doesn't make you one thing. It's just a way to describe how some people's brains work. It doesn't define a person. You want proof? Greta Thunberg and Elon Musk. Those are two autistic people who have very different viewpoints and ways of contributing to society. If you even think that people need to contribute to society in certain ways. This is why it was particularly alarming when the Trump administration announced that the National Institute of Health will use information from federal health insurance programs to create a database on autism. In other words, RFK Jr was soft launching a national registry for autistic people. Health officials then tried to walk back this announcement, and it's still unclear what exactly the database will consist of. One thing we do know is that RFK Jr tapped David Geyer to head that September study. Geyer's startling resume in autism research includes being charged by the Maryland Board of Physicians for practicing medicine without a license. Geyer, along with his father, Dr. Mark Geyer, treated autistic children with puberty blockers and chelation therapy, which followed a widely discredited theory that blames autism on exposure to mercury preservatives in vaccines. Mark's medical license was eventually suspended by 7 states, where he and David operated clinics like the Genetic Centers of America, among other names. Here's how Dr. Paul Offit of Philadelphia's Children's Hospital described the treatment that David and Mark were administering to autistic children. Quote, "It basically was chemical castration to delay puberty and chelation therapy to rid your body of the heavy metals that presumably were causing your autism." So, eugenics. Let's call it soft eugenics. Remember all that anti-vaccine stuff? That's eugenics. He's lowering vaccination rates, which will harm immunocompromised people. It's eugenics stuff. The idea that sick people don't need protections, that we don't have to be considerate of them, wear masks during a pandemic. This is all soft eugenics because the next logical step is that those people die. And this goes beyond MAHA and into Maga. There is a dangerous aura of eugenics around these freaks, from the autism stuff to Pete Hegseth declaring his No Fatties initiative.
It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are.
Not saying people shouldn't be healthy, but what does the appearance of fitness have to do with someone's ability to lead? He stresses appearance and how we look, right? Not actual health. We've talked on the show about how your weight and your health are two very different things. Pete just wants people who look fit, I guess. But as we've seen from Pete himself, appearing healthy has nothing to do with actual competence or leadership. Not to mention, Trump's health and appearance. It's all to say that they have this childlike notion that the appearance of fitness equals competence, while not actually equating that with actual health, but rather what they think health looks like. It is a concern with aesthetics and outdated standards around what they think is healthy, so they can determine who has value. A concern with aesthetics that unfortunately echoes the Nazis' view of body and soul. I'm sorry to bring them into this, but Nazis believed that your body was a reflection of your soul. They had an obsession with beauty that to them meant an ugly person was ugly inside. They thought wrongly that the physical body was a reflection of a person's spiritual quality and character. It allowed them to justify horrific acts against many different people and many different types of people. It's stupid. At worst, this obsession with aesthetics is Nazi bullshit. At best, it's stupid gym bro shit. You gotta shovel down that lead-laced protein powder, right? Grab an extremely misunderstood Punisher skull shirt and do some push-ups, but not too many. This is all in the same scary and stupid camp. It's the same way RFK thinks about autism, where any deviation on this spectrum that prevents productivity is bad and should be abandoned, lest you become what the Nazis referred to as useless eaters, just one step away from eugenics. After all, that would be ideal for them. It fits so nicely into their ideology of bootstrap conservatism in the face of zero regulations, that the government is in no way responsible for providing an environment where living a healthy lifestyle is accessible for everyone. The MAHA movement laments poor public health outcomes in the country, but never offers real public health solutions. Their version of health is completely wrapped up in a fever dream of RFK Jr. lifting weights shirtless in blue jeans, which, I will admit, is a lot easier than fighting for systemic changes in our health and economic system that would actually provide relief for millions of Americans. As I keep saying, MAHA is perfect for them. It is their answer to the problems with healthcare, something they've always struggled with. Why bother with science or legislation when you can just point some fingers and maybe do a eugenics or two? Because letting sick people die is way easier than actually paying to help the vulnerable. This did not help with my headache. Maybe I should try weed again. It's been so long too. I've had this headache for maybe 10 years? 10 years. I wonder why. "10 years ago, I did eat a strawberry. So maybe strawberries cause headaches. And so I can't think straight because of this 10-year-long strawberry headache. Oh no, it's Trump. It's Trump. Ahoy there, matey! Arrgh. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out our podcast. We do it twice a week on this channel and where the podcasts live. And you can listen to this show as a podcast where the podcasts live, or watch it again. Like and subscribe. We've got a patreon.com/some-more-news. We've got a merch store with this little fella. Oh, that's why I had the headache. He's on stuff. So check that out. Yep.